The big picture with IoT and machine-to-machines is in fact that we've got IoT has existed for all the time. We just sort of suddenly doing it and calling it IoT, and people are calling it the fourth industrial revolution and so forth. But of course, it's been done. People have been controlling things, and here's the sort of technologies that's been used, traditional ones, and then lately there's some very specific ones, and IoT has, of course, grabbed everyone's attention. So if you look at it, this overview I'll leave for you later. We'll send you the webinar. I certainly don't intend to go through them, but these are all those technologies. The real point I want to make is that antennas don't care about the technology. People often ask us, is this a LoRa antenna, or questions like that. They don't care. What is very important with antennas is the frequency. They transmit anything. They don't care what the protocol is. And of course, the actual performance. So you have to select the right antenna for what you wish to do. What we're going to do is, I'm just going to look in detail at some of the very specific and perhaps newer IoT technologies. These are LoRa, Sigfox, the new narrowband LTE techniques, or specific modes, Wi-Fi. I think Wi-Fi is still very important. And then mesh. Mesh is becoming a very, very interesting technology, and we've had quite a bit to do it. Often the mesh still using the Wi-Fi frequency ranges. Now, if we go over to them, they're quite different in many ways. The Sigfox LoRa guys typically sit at well, in Europe, they sit at the 868 band, America, the 915, the so-called ISM bands. LoRa, certainly going up to kilobits per second. You can define it a little bit more because that's controlled by the guy that puts the network up. Sigfox is an international network, and that works at very low data rates, but extremely good sensitivity and very long distances, also very difficult to jam and to stop, and the devices are quite low cost. Then, of course, as you go to GSM, you can go to kilobits per second, typical the IoT bands, but you can go all the way up to megabits per second speeds. These ones, of course, can go up to high megabits, the Wi-Fi technologies. Mobility, you can have a look at that. It sort of depends what you consider to be mobility. Coverage is very important. People say LoRa, Sigfox, like they do technologies that just compete. They're entirely different in the sense that the LoRa network is put up by typically the company or sometimes an operator, where Sigfox is an international network. So you can't put up a Sigfox network, you can't put up base stations, whereas LoRa is much more under your control. But of course, this is national, international in many countries. I call the LTE ones national because for IoT, people are not going to use roaming. It just doesn't make much sense. And of course, Wi-Fi is very small sort of coverage, and mesh somewhere in between, can be as large as you create your own mesh. There's the ownership. I think I've gone through that. If you go to client device cost, that's an important factor. Typically LoRa, Sigfox, very low. These ones, what we call medium, and most probably the mesh ones higher. Not because it's because mesh doesn't have a client. They're all clients and base stations if it's a true mesh network. Data subscription cost is an important factor. That's where, for example, LoRa and these differ because these are put together by the users. So the actual data cost is nothing. Sigfox typically very low. And of course, these could go medium to high if you look at this range of costs we're talking about. The network deployment cost, once again, if it's operators, doesn't cost you anything. LoRa, you have to deploy yourself. Call it medium, low cost for Wi-Fi. And this one is higher just because every device there is actually quite an intelligent device. So it costs quite a bit because the network is in fact all of the customers and could have sort of base station nodes, but they're exactly the same thing. Battery life is a very, very important thing. And we've defined it long, very long, medium. I'm saying short. And I am aware that there's now Wi-Fi guys doing some very clever low power Wi-Fi things, but generally speaking, that's the case. LoRa, and these are very rough parameters. Of course, antennas feature a lot here, but say in a rough range of order of 10 kilometers. Sigfox very large. And the GSM or narrowband LTE IoT, it differs, but it goes up to 50 kilometers. This certainly just in order of hundreds of meters. And here depends how big your mesh ultimately is.